Imagine stepping out of the glaring, the really blinding, relentless sun into a cool, quiet, pitch black room.
Just a total sensory reset.
Exactly. Your eyes take a second to adjust. The noise of the street just fades away. All that visual overload, it stops.
And finally, in that perfect, enveloping dark, you can actually think.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you are stepping into that dark room with us. And the visual landscape of our journey today, if you can picture it in your mind, is one of psychedelic sci-fi graphics.
Yeah, picture text rendering in your mind in these wide, distorted laser light fonts.
Right, spelling out the title of our source material today. We are examining chapter 1 of this absolutely radical, paradigm-shifting book called A Big Log.
Written by the author and musician known as RADIO-MANNADORO.
The overarching mission of this deep dive is to really explore the author's intense awareness of our current total dystopia.
It's a fierce denial of all absolutism, right? It posits a reality where the word isn't used as some tool of sequential grammatical logic.
No, it's used as a sonic instrument, a resonance frequency.
And to truly honor the author's systemic deconstruction of reality here, we're going to start this deep dive a little differently.
Yeah, we are breaking our usual conversational format for the first half of this analysis. Because the text we're examining, it's structured as a series of 16 core documents.
16 documents that just meticulously dismantle the foundations of modern thought.
So, we're going to move sequentially through these 16 subdocuments. Our tone is going to be peremptory, authoritative, precise.
Relentless. We're going to stop at each paragraph, extract its core code, and analyze it immediately.
Right. And only once that entire sequence is complete will we break form, take a breath, and unpack the massive philosophical implications in a broader dialogue.
So prepare yourself. We begin the sequence now.
Document 1.1.1. Historical context, 1905 to 1930. We shift from the 19th century perfect clockwork universe to Einstein's special relativity in 1905.
The speed of light, CI, becomes the ultimate limit. While quantum pioneers like Planck and Heisenberg were discovering a vibrating, chaotic reality, the establishment clung to Einstein.
Relativity wasn't just science. It became a moral boundary. To look beyond the speed of light became heresy.
Document 1.1.2. Einstein as cultural and geopolitical symbol. He was transformed into a secular messiah for the post-war West, the quintessential good scientist.
This had strict geopolitical utility. He was canonized to legitimize the New World Order. Relativity became an ideological filter.
But Manadoric thought slips through the atoms, proving the mind can pierce this geometry of empire.
Document 1.1.3. Popular reception of relativity. The 1919 solar eclipse. The media declared Einstein wins, though the public understood nothing of the math.
This is the exact moment science became a religion. The masses were told to believe rather than understand. A theory became a dogma, shutting out alternative cosmologies.
Document 1.1.4. Modern scientific sacralization. The laboratory is the temple. Peer review is the confessor.
And Einstein is the prophet. Doubt the true engine of science was made a mortal sin. The free human doesn't sacralize. The free human experiments and destroys dogma.
Document 1.1.5. Global media consensus. The pop culture icon of Einstein. The posters. The messy hair.
A deliberate narrative to obscure quantum weirdness. Conclusion of the first theme. The speed of light was weaponized as a mental and cultural prison.
Document 1.2.1. The metaphor and deception of light. We pivot to the philosophical root. Plato's cave and Christian theology dictating that light is truth and darkness is evil.
This visual metaphor castrates intuition. The obsession with illuminating everything is actually the ultimate tool of control, the panopticon. True quantum light is a paradox, a wave and a particle. It is a trick, a mask.
Document 1.2.2. Semantic manipulation of frequency. Tracking the word frequency from hertz and radio waves to new age spiritual hijacking, I-vibes.
A sharp critique of frequencies used in tech control. 5G, ELF, cognitive weapons, and algorithms. We must move from imposed frequency to chosen resonance.
Document 1.2.3. The threshold of the invisible. The visible world is merely a surface layer supported by a subtle carrier wave.
A warning. Do not replace material dogma with spiritual and visible dogma. True access requires sensory discernment, not blind faith.
Document 1.2.4. Darkness is a semantic space. Darkness is rehabilitated. It is not ignorance.
It is the womb of language, the space of the unsaid. In a society obsessed with surveillance and forced transparency, choosing darkness is a semantic act of resistance.
Document 1.2.5. Silence as a radical semantic act. Silence is not empty space. It is the origin language.
Pure political defection. When language is corrupted by ideology, refusing to speak is the ultimate revolutionary gesture.
Document 1.3.1, the code of vibrational thought, the shift from sequential logic to wave logic.
Meanings don't link like chains, they interfere and resonate like waves. Activate this code by silencing internal noise and ego.
Document 1.3.2, grammar of waves. Fluid syntax, a sentence doesn't end, it propagates.
Semantic resonance. Words have melodies. Writing is composing perceptual harmonies. The void, the pause vibrates just as loudly as the word.
Document 1.3.3, error as revelation. In vibrational thought, an error is a productive fracture.
Like a jazz musician playing a wrong note that reveals a higher harmony. Systemic errors sabotage dogma and allow the unconscious to speak.
Document 1.3.4, thinking by patterns. Form is the active message. Synchronicity and recurring rhythms replace linear A to B thinking.
The brain recognizes visual and cognitive patterns before defining them. The author weaves text like a tapestry, inviting the reader to co-compose the meaning.
Document 1.3.5, intuition as direct access to the field. The final paragraph. Intuition is not an irrational guess.
It is direct resonance with the semantic matrix. Logic divides, but collective silent intuition unites. Sequence complete.
Phew. Okay. Taking a very deep breath here.
Yeah, stepping out of the rigidity of that structure.
The architecture of that sequence is, it's incredibly imposing. It demands a really specific kind of cognitive posture just to deliver it.
It really does. And to you listening, we deliberately maintained that relentless tone because that is the exact cadence Radio-MANNADORO uses to dismantle our fundamental assumptions.
Right. It's like downloading a compressed file of pure, radical philosophy directly into your consciousness. But now let's unpack this dynamically. Let's look at the staggering epistemological attack occurring in Chapter 1.
The overarching theme here is the fierce denial of absolutism. But the author isn't just targeting state power or religious orthodoxy.
The primary target is the very foundation of how we know what we know, the sacralization of science. Specifically, the speed of light as an insurmountable boundary.
I find the historical framing in those first few documents absolutely fascinating. The text argues that the scientific establishment essentially clowned Einstein as a secular messiah, not just because his math was elegant, but because his model offered a closed, controllable system.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the quantum physicists, they were pointing to a universe that was deeply entangled, chaotic, and non-local. But the establishment needed a ceiling. They needed a speed limit to maintain order.
And I would argue the text goes even further than suggesting they just needed order. It posits that relativity was utilized as an ideological filter.
Right, because by establishing c, the speed of light, as the absolute limit of reality, any exploration of phenomena that operate outside of sequential time or localized space is instantly branded as heresy.
It's a brilliant epistemological critique. If you can define the physical boundaries of the universe, you automatically define the boundaries of permissible thought.
And the mechanism used to enforce those boundaries is deeply tied to our reliance on the visual. That critique of visual thinking in document 1.2.1 completely shifts the paradigm.
We constantly use visual metaphors, right? I see your point. Let's illuminate this issue. We need transparency.
Yeah, and the author traces this right back to Plato's cave. But if we are biologically visual creatures, why is the author so adamant that this visual framework is actually a cognitive prison?
Because visual logic relies on separation and surveillance. If something is illuminated, it has a defined edge. It can be categorized, isolated, and most importantly, observed by a central authority.
The panopticon.
Exactly, the modern panopticon. If you operate in the light, you are operating within the master's parameters. That's why the text advocates so fiercely for a shift away from visual grammatical logic toward understanding the word as a sonic instrument.
The transition from seeing to hearing, or more accurately, from seeing to resonating. Think about how profound that shift is for a second. Grammatical logic is sequential. Subject, verb, object, cause and effect.
Point A to point B.
Right. But sonic resonance doesn't work like that. If you strike a tuning fork, it doesn't send a linear message. It creates a field of vibration that interacts with everything around it. It's like feeling the bass of a song in your chest before you even understand the lyrics.
Which introduces the concept of fluid syntax and wave logic that we analyze later in the sequence. In this framework, a sentence isn't a container of fixed data, it's a pebble dropped in a pond.
The meaning is found in the ripples, the interference patterns.
And this completely upends how experts in philosophy and physics are trained to operate. We are taught to build arguments brick by brick. Manadoro is suggesting we need to compose reality chord by chord.
And that brings us to what I think is the most radical act proposed in the text, the rehabilitation of darkness and silence. When I first read this, my instinct was to push back, honestly. We equate darkness with ignorance, with danger.
Sure, it's culturally ingrained, but the author frames retreating into the dark and the quiet as an act of absolute political defection. It's not retreating in defeat.
No, it is a strategic withdrawal from a corrupted semantic field. If the light is a dogmatic symbol of forced transparency, and if the language we speak has been co-opted by algorithms, which the author specifically ties to the manipulation of the word frequency, then continuing to operate in the light is participating in your own subjugation.
You have to suspend your judgment entirely to make that leap. You have to be willing to sit in the space of the unsaid, that dark semantic womb, without immediately rushing to define it.
Which is hard today. We live in an era of hot takes and instant analysis. Everyone wants to immediately shine a light on every event. The text argues that this compulsive need to illuminate actually destroys the capacity for genuine intuition.
Which perfectly sets up the broader epistemological implications. If sequential logic is compromised and imposed frequencies are guiding our choices, how do we access truth?
The answer is pattern thinking, semantic resonance.
Recognizing the recurring rhythms and structural returns in our reality, rather than trying to force a linear narrative onto them.
I really want to focus on that transition from imposed frequency to chosen resonance because it feels incredibly relevant. The text points out the dark irony of our current era. People are constantly talking about raising their frequency in this new age sense, while literally surrounded by 5G networks and extremely low-frequency technologies.
Technologies designed to harvest their attention and predict their behavior. It is the ultimate co-optation. The system takes a fundamental truth about vibrational reality and sells it back to the public as a lifestyle brand,
while simultaneously weaponizing the actual physics of frequency for behavioral control.
This is exactly why the author issues that severe warning at the threshold of the invisible. It is very easy to abandon material dogma only to fall directly into a manufactured, spiritualized dogma that serves the exact same control structure.
Which leads us directly into the most harrowing and esoteric section of Chapter 1. We've talked about the prison of light, the manipulation of frequency, the corruption of language, but Radio-Mannadoro takes this critique to a cosmic level.
We are now moving into Part 3, the grand illusion, the demiurge, and the hacked matrix.
Now, as we transition here, it is crucial to state that we are impartially presenting the author's radical theological and cosmological thesis. We're not endorsing this as fact, but exploring it as the conceptual framework of the book.
Right, it's a profound departure from orthodox historical and religious narratives, drawing heavily on esoteric and Gnostic frameworks to explain the current total dystopia.
And the entry point for this cosmic critique is a metaphor that honestly hasn't left my mind since I read it. The author asks us to consider a street lamp at night.
We've all seen it.
Right. Hundreds of dead flies gathered under the artificial light. They are compulsively attracted to it. They exhaust all their energy circling it, believing it to be the sun, the source of life, until they simply drop dead to the ground. And the text asks this chilling question: are we not doing the exact same thing?
It is a devastatingly effective memory and metaphor for the deception of light. The flies are biologically programmed to seek the light, but the artificial street lamp hijacks that imperative. It offers illumination without nourishment.
It is a synthetic trap.
And the author posits that human consciousness is currently trapped in an identical dynamic on a macrocosmic scale.
The linguistic connections the author draws to support this are staggering. Let's look at the phrase Lord of the Flies. We know it as a famous novel, but etymologically, Lord of the Flies is the literal Aramaic translation of Beelzebub.
Furthermore, the author points out a phonetic synchronicity. In English, Lord of Flies sounds virtually identical to Lord of Lies.
Lord of Flies, Lord of Lies. Within the author's framework, this is not a mere coincidence. It is evidence of a hacked logos. The underlying code of our reality has been corrupted.
The text introduces the concept of the matrix here, but not strictly in the modern sci-fi sense. It aligns deeply with Gnostic cosmology, positing that the material universe was not created by the ultimate benevolent source, but by a demiurge.
For those navigating this framework, the text specifically identifies this demiurge as Yaldabaoth. According to these esoteric traditions, Yaldabaoth is an impostor. He is the flawed offspring of Sophia, who is an emanation of the true, unknowable monad.
This impostor creates the physical universe the Matrix as a system of control, a flawed imitation of the divine realm. He's the Lord of the Flies, the Lord of Lies, generating the artificial light of the street lamp to keep human consciousness endlessly circling.
Generating energy for the system. It's a cosmology of entrapment. And if we follow the author's logic to its ultimate conclusion, it forces a radical reevaluation of foundational religious texts.
Because if the creator of this specific material matrix is an imposter, a parasitic entity that demands worship and sacrifice,
Then what does that mean for the phrase, man was created in his image and likeness? That is the cornerstone of Western theology. If the he in that sentence is the demiurge, the Lord of Lies, then being created in his image isn't a divine blessing.
it's the ultimate mark of enslavement. We are built with the source code of the controller.
Exactly. The text makes the radical assertion that the Bible, when viewed through the lens of this hacked logos, is not a document of salvation. It is framed as the most successful and devastating scam in human history.
The text pulls no punches here. It attributes the root of all historical atrocities to this specific predictive programming. The endless wars, the rivers of blood, the systemic abuse, theft, and possession.
The author views all of this not as human nature gone astray, but as the software of the demiurge functioning exactly as intended. The religious texts are viewed as millennia of code written to ensure the flies keep worshiping the street lamp.
By linking the scientific sacralization of light, Einstein's limit of C, to the theological sacralization of the Lord of Light, Manadoro constructs a unified theory of the human dystopia.
Right, the physicist telling you nothing can exceed the speed of light, and the priest telling you to submit to the illuminated deity, they're ultimately serving the exact same function.
Enforcing the boundaries of the artificial matrix and suppressing the boundless, interdimensional, vibrational potential of human consciousness.
It's a breathtaking synthesis. When you view reality through this lens, the necessity of the linguistic and cognitive shifts we discussed in Part 1 becomes entirely clear.
Because if the light is a trap, and the very grammar we use to think is corrupted code designed by an imposter, you cannot simply reason your way out of the matrix.
No, you can't beat a hacked system using the syntax the system provided you. You cannot dismantle the architecture of control using the logic of the controller.
Which is why the author emphasizes fluid syntax, wave logic, and semantic resonance. You have to operate on a frequency that the demiurgic architecture cannot map or surveil.
You must embrace error, because an error in a corrupted system is actually a moment of truth. Which brings us back to the power of the dark. Understanding the prison of light, recognizing the street lamp for the trap that it is only the preparatory phase.
It's just the diagnosis. The natural next step, which the text points us toward, is the exploration of silence.
But importantly, silence here is not an absence. It is an achieved act. It requires immense discipline to quiet the internal noise, to resist the biological and cultural programming that compels us to seek the artificial light of easy answers and rigid definitions.
To hold the tension of the unknown until genuine semantic resonance occurs is the ultimate act of rebellion.
We are coming to the end of this incredibly intense analysis, and I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. We've spent this time dissecting how sequential logic and visual metaphors trap human consciousness.
But let's apply this way of logic to something the text doesn't explicitly mention: the future of artificial intelligence.
Right. Think about it. Right now, humanity is building AI, using the exact sequential, grammatical, point A to point B logic that Manadoro identifies as the code of the matrix. We are training massive language models on corrupted syntax.
If the demiurge built a synthetic trap for us, aren't we just building a secondary digital street lamp for ourselves?
What would an artificial intelligence look like if it were trained not on linear data processing, but on semantic resonance, wave logic, structural silence? Could a machine ever understand the profound meaning of a perfectly timed pause?
That is the ultimate test of the system. If we replicate our corrupted syntax in silicon, we only deepen the dystopia. The escape route relies on intuition, the one variable that sequential code cannot simulate.
To close out this deep dive, we must honor the specific artistic roots of the author. Radio-Mannadoro is fundamentally a musician, and this entire philosophy of sonic instruments and vibrational reality culminates in the ending of their song, Cristallo Vivente, the living crystal.
It encapsulates the ultimate defection, the final achieved escape from the blinding, buzzing trap of the street lamp.
We leave you with this exact state of being. As the resonance fades, Manadoro leaves us with these words: e buio pesto silencio.
It is pitch dark.